Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Peter McDonnell. I'm the Alan and Marlene Norton Director and the William Holland Wilmer Professor at the Wilmer Eye Institute here at Johns Hopkins. And it is a delight to welcome all of you here today for this very special celebration during Wilmer's centennial year. And this makes it especially meaningful. We've had our board here today, and they are thrilled to be with all of you and with our special guests today. And I'd like to acknowledge President Daniels, President of Johns Hopkins University, Dean Theodore Ted DeWeese, our fearless dean of our school and CEO of the Johns Hopkins Medicine, Ed and Jennifer St. John, and the members of the St. John family, and Ed's colleagues, especially Ms. Sharon Akers, who is president of the Ed St. John Foundation, and has worked with Mr. St. John, I think I just heard her say, for 24 years as it relates to his philanthropic priorities, and also members of the Wilmer Board of Governors. And Dr. Henry Brem, Chairman Emeritus of our Department of Neurosurgery, is with us today also. Special welcome to Dr. Ashley Behrens, his wonderful wife, Natalie, his beautiful daughters, Nicole and Jessica, his beautiful son, Ashley, who's joining us all the way from France, and their extended family that are here with us today. Ashley is the chief of our comprehensive ophthalmology service and a gifted cataract and anterior segment surgeon, and the person who, if a patient needs to be seen, always says yes and is always there to help his colleagues. Ashley's known throughout the world. He speaks, and I'll mention this in a little second, but he speaks multiple languages. He's published ophthalmology articles in 3 different languages, and he's a special member of the Wilmer family. Before I invite Dean DeWeese to the podium, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Edward St. John for his generous philanthropic support, not only for Johns Hopkins, but for his alma mater, University of Maryland, where 2 of our children went to school. Is the Ed St. John Student Center, which is lovely. When I take people to visit that McDonough campus, they say, "What is this, Princeton?" And pretty much it's nicer, I think, than Princeton, thanks to the generous support of individuals like Mr. St. John. But this is not his first professorship in support of Johns Hopkins medicine. This is his second professorship because Dr. Behrens joins Dr. David Sprague in our cardiology department, who holds a chair in Mr. St. John's name. So I think one more and you get to have your own little medical society. His philanthropy, as I mentioned, is not only across Johns Hopkins, but includes many organizations around Maryland, both educational and health, and to serve the public. And so we're thrilled and delighted to count Mr. St. John as a friend and partner of the Wilmer Eye Institute. And it's now my pleasure to invite Dean DeWeese to the podium.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, everyone. Such a delight to be here, truly, as we're going to dedicate the Edward St. John Professorship in Ophthalmology, and really importantly, to celebrate its most worthy inaugural recipient, you, Dr. Ashley Behrens. Congratulations, Ashley. And before I begin, I almost feel compelled that he speaks multiple languages, apparently, Peter. I did not know that. Well, I assumed one other at least. And publishing, I remember many years ago, my daughter, who's a graduate student here now, she used to ask me, because she was taking French and Spanish, and she decided that Dad spoke 2 languages, English and gibberish. And I think to this day, that is probably about the best I could hope for. But Ashley, congratulations, as I noted. Professorships have so many meanings, and they're sort of multi-layered in what their impact is. I think one of the most important aspects is it does one major thing. It provides a great foundation of being solid and giving a little bit of support to providing that place where creativity can spring. Because if you don't feel some level of solidness in your work, in your place, then I think people get distracted. And I think these professorships, and this one in particular, provide that opportunity for creativity to spring, to be sure that people like Ashley on our faculty get to perform the kind of discovery work, new information, new data, new cures for disease that then gets translated into the best of patient care. And if we're doing those things really well, then of course, the people inside the WIMA, the medical students who rotate here, the residents, the fellows, are learning in the most contemporary environment, and then that just keeps going. And so professorships are really, really very important for that. And Ed, that you have chosen, once again, to bless Johns Hopkins with that solid base to do these sorts of things, and that Ashley is being honored in this way, I just want to truly thank you. You've done it several times, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you for that. As Peter already noted, Ashley sort of has, I'll say this later, you're sort of this multi-sport kind of athlete guy, because I know about, because I've sent patients over for all the sort of external stuff to the eye. I'm being very technical for the rest of the ophthalmologists. I know you do cataract work. I know you do refractive surgery kinds of work, a variety of things, but also doing that really complex, corneal manipulation, corneal transplants for the rare diseases that are, based in the cornea. And so being an outstanding physician and then the training that comes along with that, already known about Ashley, coming from Universidad Central de Venezuela. I worked on that before, as I was walking over, Ashley. You can tell I don't speak Spanish very well. Thank you. And then completed his residency and fellowship at Francisco Risquez. And then, so changing continents for the first time to Erlangen, which is a fantastic place, by the way, in Nuremberg, time there. Then continents again clear across the globe to California, USC and UC Irvine, I believe. Then you came back somewhere in the middle of those places in Baltimore, except then you're off to Saudi Arabia, being an executive director for our very important Saudi project that we had with King Khalid Eye Hospital there, and that going very well. And then back here, and as Peter noted, running our comprehensive division, which, as far as I know, is it the biggest division? I'm not sure. It certainly probably sees the most patients by far. So he has all of this expertise in the clinical care in these complex diseases, willing to see patients at a moment's notice, as I know since I've sent people to you, training all the fantastic residence fellows that come through this place, and then the whole leadership piece. So that's the multi-sport athlete that I was talking about, and that doesn't happen that often, which I will say once again, why professorships are extremely important to us, because they allow us to recruit and retain outstanding faculty, Ed, that are like Ashley, and allow the excellence and the preeminence that Johns Hopkins is to continue to perpetuate over time. And these professorships outlive all of us in this room, and that's a good thing. That after Ashley, it'll be somebody else under a different director in the department, under a much smarter dean and CEO at some point, and the whole thing just continues, because that's what Johns Hopkins does. It's an important place in the world to do important work to improve the human condition, and that's what we're for. And Ashley, congratulations, you're now part of that, and Ed, thank you very much. So, as many of you know, professorships are, and the endowments associated with them, are held and administered by the university, so we have to formally and need to and want to formally present them to the university. So I'll ask my colleague and friend, President Ron Daniels, to come to the podium. President Daniels, as the Dean of the School of Medicine and CEO of Johns Hopkins Medicine, I'm pleased to present to you, formally, the Edward St. John Professorship in Ophthalmology. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ted, and good afternoon to you all. And what a privilege and pleasure it is to be here today with so many colleagues and friends at Johns Hopkins to celebrate this wonderful occasion for our Department of Ophthalmology and for Dr. Ashley Behrens, the inaugural recipient of the Edward St. John Professorship, not official yet, but soon to be in a moment. And I'm thrilled to be able to share the celebration with Dr. Behrens' family, and his wife Jennifer, and with Sharon Ackers, who's long been a friend to the university, who's president of the Edward St. John Foundation. Thank you all for joining us today. And so, without any further ado, it is my great pleasure to formally accept the Edward St. John Professorship in Ophthalmology on behalf of Johns Hopkins University. Now it's official, we can applaud. We're here today to celebrate two truly exceptional legacies that lie at the core of our mission, those of visionary philanthropy and faculty excellence in patient care, research, and training. These twin legacies, of course, find their full flower in the establishment, as Ted indicated a moment ago, in the endowment of an endowed chair like this one. And indeed, since Wilmer's earliest days, the legacy of this symbiotic relationship between philanthropy and research has run through the history of this field-leading institute, beginning when, as Peter has educated me, the resolutely grateful Aida di Costa Root Breckenridge flatly refused to take no for an answer to her offer to raise funds for a state-of-the-art ophthalmological institution to be led by Dr. William Holland Wilmer, who had saved her sight. It's a little like the cornea and the lens. If you only have one, the world is a blur. It takes both working together to achieve optimal vision. I've paid attention, Peter, to the visits that I have done at Wilmer over the years, and Ted, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn different parts of anatomy across the field of medicine and to be able to find strained metaphors to animate my speeches. Metaphors aside, the reality is clear. One has only to look at Wilmer's generations of giants, from Woods to Momeni to Patz to Goldberg and now McDonald. They have left or are leaving their indelible marks on this field and on this institute, but they did not, indeed could not do that on their own. Generation after generation, philanthropic partners have enabled our faculty members to focus on their research and in turn help them deliver on their impactful vision for the future of ophthalmological care. Today we gather to celebrate another exceptional partnership between Edward St. John and Dr. Ashley Behrens. When Ed found driving at night feeling, as he put it, like looking through thick glass, his research brought him, not surprisingly, here to Wilmer, and again, not surprisingly, to Ashley. And no wonder, because Ed knows the value of what he calls those A-plus people. In fact, he often says that finding them has been key to his success growing St. John Properties from a single warehouse on Stafford Avenue to over 25 million square feet of space across 12 states. And while this is a high bar coming from Ed, a man who makes it sound simple and intuitive to apply the principles of electrical engineering to the real estate business, and Ashley, his keen eye for those A-plus people was indeed spot on. As you've heard, Ashley Behrens' extraordinary medical and surgical skills have time and time again yielded transformative results for his patients. His leadership of Wilmer's comprehensive division, through which so many patients first entered Johns Hopkins care, throughout the institute, through which so many patients first entered Johns Hopkins care, scales his expertise and dedication to patient care throughout the institute. And now, with Ed's support, Ashley can take his field-leading research on fighting infection to patients all around the world. Ashley and Ed, yours is a remarkable continuation of the partnership between philanthropic and clinical vision that has supported this institute and its faculty's impact since its very founding. A legacy of focused impact that changes and improves patient lives in perpetuity. So Ed, thank you for your longstanding partnership with Johns Hopkins, which has made possible so much for so many, and for your support, which provides Ashley the freedom to pursue the high-risk, high-reward research that brings new treatments, better sight, and new hope to so many patients. And Ashley, we cannot wait to see what it makes possible for you and for the many patients whose lives your work immeasurably strengthens and improves. Congratulations.
Thank you, President Daniels. It's my pleasure to introduce our donor who made this possible on this special centennial year for Wilmer. This milestone is more than a measure of time past. It's a testament to our legacy. And this gift from Mr. St. John will position the Wilmer Institute for a very successful second century. With that legacy comes a profound responsibility for us to be looking forward. And with Ashley as a teacher and as well as a physician and a scientist, Wilmer's future is extremely bright. Now, Mr. St. John has been a generous donor to Ashley over the years, but I knew the name St. John because I would drive by properties. I'm sure you've seen it, and you'd see the name St. John Properties, but I assumed it was just like, Exxon or something. I didn't really know the person behind it. And then one day there was an article in the Baltimore Sun, and they'd had a company Christmas party, as I recall, and everybody at the party got this gigantic, as a surprise, a gigantic check that they didn't know they were going to get. And the Baltimore Sun thought this was so impressive that they ran this article about this generosity. And then one day I was walking through Wilmer and I saw that Mr. St. John was seeing Ashley. And I said to Ashley, I want to go chat a few minutes with Mr. St. John. And Ashley laughed. And I said, what are you laughing at? And it doesn't make you very special at Wilmer if you make fun of the chairman. But he said, you're going to chat with Mr. St. John. You are the two least chatty people that I have known in my entire life. And but I went in anyway and introduced myself. I was hoping there might be one of those extra checks from the Christmas party. There wasn't, and I do recall, Ashley, it was actually a pretty brief chat, but still it was great to see him. And then, he had, as all your patients do, had a wonderful outcome. And Ashley is a go-to doctor at Wilmer. Never says no, always says yes. And Mr. St. John has supported Ashley not only through his philanthropy, but through some high points in his life. And at one time, I was invited over to their headquarters at St. John Properties. Ashley also was invited. And I thought, oh, this is great. And we go over there. I can meet Mr. St. John again and his team. And Ashley cruises in, and we're there sitting around the table. And Ms. Akers says, oh, I would like to invite to join us all the people from the company that Ashley had taken care of over the years. And it was a few hundred people came in. So I guess whenever there is a problem, anyone gets an eye problem, they knew to call Ashley, and the answer was always, sure, be happy to see, come on in. And then they brought Miss Akers. If you look on the inside back cover of this whole thing, there's a photograph there, and you might be wondering what that is. Miss Akers, who's the head of the Ed St. John Foundation, has this tray, and it's a tray of cupcakes. And they were red, white, and blue cupcakes, and they had little American flags because Ashley that morning had been sworn in as a U.S. citizen. And they knew it and wanted to celebrate with Ashley, and it was one of the nicest things that I experienced in a way that they felt a connection to this doctor of theirs, and it was lovely to be there and see Ashley as the newest citizen celebrating with the St. John gang. And I didn't get that little check when I stopped in the clinic room, but we got a big check for Wilmer to have Ashley be the St. John Professor of Ophthalmology, and I feel I can guarantee that Ashley will make the best use of this support, and that in the future generations of people, including people that Ashley trained, will do great things as a result of your generosity. So, Mr. St. John, on behalf of all of us at Wilmer, thank you very much. And it's, please ask you to come up and say a few words, Mr. Chatty. There.
Thank you for those kind words. And I want to tell everybody what Ashley has done for me. I'm looking around here, and there's probably 15 people here that are wearing glasses. I used to wear glasses. I truly did. I wore glasses. First time I was 1990 approximately, and I was docking my boat, and my eyes had been getting weaker and weaker. I grew up with 20/10 vision, which is pretty good. I mean, you know, you go to catch a baseball and you're there before the baseball is, and you always catch it. And those things you kind of do automatically. And then around 45 years old, your eyes start to weaken, and my love in life is boating. And I almost gave up boating because when you put glasses on and you try to get in a small boat, it doesn't work. I mean, your definition, your eyesight, it just doesn't work. So you take your glasses off and you look at a blurry boat. When you're docking a boat, you take your glasses off and look at a blurry dock, but you know where the dock is. And, you know, driving a fiberglass boat up to a concrete pier or even a wooden pier and not really seeing where the pier is scary. And after the first 2 or 3 times you bounce your boat off the pier, you learn to take your glasses off. So I had LASIK done to give me faraway vision without glasses, because that ½ inch where the lens is in your faces and your eyeballs are distorts your depth perception. And I wanted to be able to see the front of the boat and the pier, and they both be the same and look good. So, but that meant I had to wear readers. And then they informed me that I'm getting cataracts, which I had absolutely no idea what a cataract was. I thought maybe it was another name of a car or something. I don't know. But anyway, fast forward to one day, I was going over to Jennifer's house while we were dating and before we were married, and a car comes the other way, and all I saw looked like a floodlight in my eyes. I could not see the road. So I put my brakes on, stopped, let the car go by, and continued on. So I said, oh boy, I need to get this taken care of. I've been putting it off and putting it off. I need to get it taken care of. So I go down to Wilmer, and I don't remember, it's probably through Sharon that I got introduced to Ashley. And you go through this process, and you have one eye done, and then 30 days later you have the other eye done. And then you go in and you see the assistant before you see Ashley. And here's the story. And I've been told not to duplicate the accent of the assistant. So you won't hear the accent, but I'll speak it in English. The assistant does one eye for faraway vision. He does the other eye for faraway vision. He said, congratulations, you have 20/20 far vision, or some words to that effect. And then he redials his dials, and he says, take off your contacts. And I said, I don't have contacts. He said, you must have contacts. I said, sir, I don't have contacts. And he said, you can't have 20/20 up close and 20/20 far away if you don't have contacts on. I said, I have the world's greatest surgeon. What can I tell you? And he got up and ran out the door. Not say a word to me, just ran out the door. And I looked at my watch and I said, I'm going to give him 15 minutes to come back or I'm leaving. I don't know, I'm not going to sit here all day. My time's valuable. And in about 8 to 10 minutes, somewhere in that range, in comes Ashley, and in comes his assistant. And I said, what's the big fuss about? He said, I cut the muscles that allow you to focus your eyes. You can't have 20/20 up close and far away. And I looked straight at him and said, I am the world's greatest eye surgeon. What do you mean? At which he laughed, of course. And I do have 20/20 up close and far away. And I don't know, God probably guided your hands. I don't know what happened. And then I gave Ashley a pair of binoculars, which are the binoculars that I use on boats. And they were probably 5 times more expensive than the average pair of binoculars for boating. But what they do is from 10 feet to infinity, they magnify 7 times, and you don't focus them. And they're not auto-focusing. You don't hear anything moving. It's fixed lenses, and just 10 feet to infinity. Where most binoculars, you have to run the little wheel. And so Ashley's been trying to duplicate what he did. I heard he did duplicate it in one eye in one person. And Ashley, all I can tell you, there are thousands of people wearing, including you, wearing glasses that would like to throw the glasses in the trash can. And thank you for what you did to me. Thank you a lot. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. St. John. It's easy to understand why they get along so well, this sense of community. I'm told that the St. John properties at the company, they're like a family. And at dinner last night, I had 2 Wilmer board members telling me that that was their assessment of the comprehensive eye center that Ashley runs, that the people that work there have such pride in what they do and work together like a family. And whenever I and anyone I know reaches out to Ashley for help with a patient, the answer is always immediate and gracious, and it's never no, it's always yes. I've had the privilege of knowing Dr. Behrens for several decades now, and long before he became a U.S. citizen. And as he journeyed around the country, as you heard, from Caracas, Venezuela, where, of course, he would speak Spanish. And then he goes and does this 2-year fellowship in Erlangen with Dr. Naumann. And that's sort of, at that time, if there was a Wilmer of Europe, it would be this department. And if there was an Ed Malmeny of Wilmer, it would be Fritz Naumann. In fact, they looked alike. And then they, for whatever reason, recommended he do another fellowship and came to Los Angeles, where I got to have him as a fellow and got to know him. And then he leaves to be department chair in Caracas, Venezuela. And then things, as you know, became difficult in that country, and we were able to convince Ashley to come back to beautiful Baltimore, come to it for the first time, and then became the chair of the largest eye hospital in the Middle East, this King Khalid Eye Specialist Hospital that makes Wilmer look small. And but one of the things that impressed me is along the way, here he is publishing. He has about coming up on like 100 publications and journals, which is not a record. But the fact that a bunch of them start out in being in Spanish, and then after 2 years in Germany, he could speak German and write a scientific article in German, and then obviously in English. And so to publish in 3 languages, and there's this thing called Lo Mejor de la Academy. Is that pretty good? So there's a group of Spanish-speaking ophthalmologists that go to the American Academy of Ophthalmology and summarize all the highlights for non-English speaking ophthalmologists, for Spanish speaking, and they repeat everything, go over everything in Spanish. So the ophthalmologists that can't access the content because they're not fluent in English are able to get that all because, and Ashley and a small group of his colleagues absorb everything and then translate everything that they think is important for people to know and do the whole academy, which is like a week-long thing. They do it in a couple of hours in Spanish, which is really impressive. And his top article in German, I think, is the classic Hornhautdruckflackenrundung, which is the first word of this paper, but it's about as long as half the papers I've written. Nach perforierender Keratoplastik vor und nach Fadenentfernung, which means posterior corneal curvature after penetrating keratoplasty with and without sutures, apparently. So Ashley is besides being a great guy, he's really a gifted clinician, and his surgical ability is a gift from God. And I was thinking about a while ago, as I mentioned, Dr. Henry Brem, our former chair of neurosurgery, is here. And he had a famous member of his department, Ben Carson, who is a pediatric neurosurgeon, and invented these heroic operations that do in children with seizures and other things. And when Ben retired from clinical practice to have the low-stress job of running in the primary for president, there was an event, a dinner in his honor, and Jan and I got to sit with him and his wife, Candy. And I asked him, gee, do you miss clinical practice? And he said that he apparently operated on Mondays, and he said for 30 years, I would go to bed on Sunday night and sort of toss and turn and be thinking about what I'm going to have to do tomorrow, and is everything going to turn out okay in these children, and what could possibly happen. And he said, now that the first time I was retired, it was Sunday night, it was bedtime, I went to bed, boom, out like a light, slept like a baby, and it's been that way since. He said it was a big elimination of stress to retire from clinical practice. And I could relate to that because when I would operate on Mondays for most of my career, same thing on Sunday, you're thinking about what might happen the next day, and if there's a challenging problem that happens intraoperatively, how we're going to respond to it. And people don't die during eye surgery, but if things don't go well, they're not going to see. And so it was stressful. But I think in Ashley's case, it's the opposite. Ashley views the time he spends in the operating room as living, and all the rest of the time is just waiting around to get back in the OR. And he's just a gifted surgeon. Now, sometimes people say, do you feel bad stealing people from other countries like Venezuela? And maybe a little. Wilmer in its history has stolen people from Germany, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, Venezuela, to name a few, even as far away as Canada. But on the other hand, it's been a two-way street because Wilmer has trained people that have gone on to be department chairs in the United Kingdom, in Brazil, in Mexico, in Israel, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, and China. So it's really a two. And to be honest, I don't feel guilty at all. I don't feel bad at all. The best people, the United States has no monopoly on brilliant, hardworking, gifted doctors and scientists, and those people should be at Wilmer, in my view. So on a professional level, I hold Ashley in the highest regard, and I know it's hard for you kids to listen to this about your dad because he's just your dad, but I hope you're all really proud of him the way I am. And his commitment to excellence in the clinic and the operating room is matched by his generous spirit of collegiality. And so I'm grateful to work alongside someone who exemplifies the very best of our field. And I know when he was in Saudi Arabia, I don't think he could only speak a little Arabic, but he didn't really become fluent in Arabic. But when he grew the beard, people all assumed he was Saudi. And when the time came for him to come back to the United States, when you go to Saudi Arabia, they take your passport. they were saying they weren't going to give him back his passport to come back. And so they were begging him, and Ashley was seriously considering staying. And Natalie said, you know, do what you want. We're going to sure miss you, me and the kids, when we're back in Baltimore. So thank you, Natalie, for making sure he came back to us in Baltimore. So Ashley, congratulations, and please come up and do your thing. Thank you.
I have to do my thing before you do your thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's not your fault. That would be your department chair's fault.
Okay.
Yeah. And Peter, I think I can
sorry.
speak on behalf of all the other folks in the room. Please don't speak German again. Please don't do that. That was quite painful, honestly. Whoop. Ashley, I think you've heard a lot of important things today, but I think what you maybe not have heard is I am confident that the patients that you have managed over these many years would say exactly what Ed said about you. You are an extraordinary representative of this institution, of the Wilmer. You represent all that is good and right and the best of Johns Hopkins. So you are more than deserving of this professorship. Ed, once again, thank you for recognizing that. Thank you for the support of Johns Hopkins and of Ashley. So Ashley, with that, now come back up. So professorships are one of the highest honors that we can bestow at the School of Medicine and at the university on our faculty. And Ashley, on behalf of the entire School of Medicine, I'm pleased to present this medallion to you in representation of this important day as the inaugural holder of the Edward St. John Professorship in Ophthalmology. Congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. We better get to. Oops. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, thanks so much. So now it's my turn. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm sorry, guys, I need a teleprompter, but there was none available, so I'm going to read this because I don't want to miss and forget people that I really appreciate and I really deserve to recognize here. So good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for being here and standing before you today as the recipient of the Edward St. John Endowed Professorship is both incredible honor and deeply humbling experience. I would like to begin expressing my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. St. John, whose generosity and vision have made this moment possible. Mr. St. John, your commitment to advancing education and your belief in the power of knowledge are inspiring. The legacy that you're creating through this endowment will not impact my own work, but will continue to support generations of scholars, researchers, and students long into the future. To our university leadership, colleagues, the students, my family and friends who have supported me through the years, thank you. None of us achieve anything alone, and I am deeply aware that I stand here today because of many acts of mentorship, encouragement, kindness along the way. Now, enough of ChatGPT. And I'm going to talk without AI, from the heart. Mr. St. John is an amazing individual. Having his name attached to my business cards and letterheads is the greatest honor because I admired him so much. Through his life, he has been able to become an extremely successful businessman, developed an enterprise from scratch, and most importantly, gave back in so many different ways. Just drive through Maryland, as Peter was saying, and you'll see several of his, of course, his logos of the company, but also of the philanthropic institutions he has helped financially or created de novo. He focuses especially in educational institutions because he understands the power of training new generations for a better future. We have been incredibly lucky to be touched by his generosity although his alma mater is University of Maryland. But we have been touched by his generosity at Johns Hopkins University as well, and we thank you for that. He has been supporting my research for a number of years before this major endowment, and that I'm especially thankful for. I would also like to thank my mentor and friend and almost big brother, Peter McDonald, who has guided me through this pathway of education, research, clinic administration, and patient care with his always wise and smart guidance. Many years working together, and the learning path has been extraordinarily fun. For those of you who do not know me well, my apologies for being absent of social media. I don't have Facebook, don't have Instagram, don't have X accounts or Snapchat. That does not mean that I'm not curious or that I live under a rock. I have my kids, that they update me all the time with text messages and other messages of what's going on in life. I will tell you a little bit about me. I was born and raised part of my life in Caracas, Venezuela, from a family of 5 girls and 2 boys. I'm the youngest. 3 of my siblings were medical doctors, 2 ophthalmologists, and 1 psychiatrist. There's also 1 dentist who is right here with us today, 1 lawyer, and another one in the eye care business as well. My dad was a super hard-working eye doctor. My mom was making sure that to raise the kids with full postgraduate education at all costs. I'm sure they're both watching now from above. The name Behrens in Venezuela is immediately associated to eye care since my great-grandparents came from Germany and brought eye care business to the country. That was in 1800s. So there's probably a history of 150 years of Behrens family with eyes in Venezuela. I remember I used to work as a high schooler with my dad, teaching post-cataract patients how to wear hard contact lenses. There were no intraocular lenses then. So the options were either wear horrible Coke bottom bottle glasses or hard contact lenses. That was the only option. And of course, I had fun doing that and trying to give sight, in my early ages. Having a family with enough eye doctors to continue the legacy, I decided early in medical school to do something different. I always loved surgery and cardiovascular surgery, and it was the most attractive specialty at that time when I was in medical school. So I decided I would go to that specialty. So I was going to be a cardiovascular surgeon. However, my ophthalmologist sister and my ophthalmologist brother passed away from different circumstances within 2 years. And my parents were devastated, and therefore I decided to change my direction back to ophthalmology, which I really never disliked. So decades later, here I am, enjoying and teaching my medical students to choose no other specialty but the best, ophthalmology. Speaking of this, I will bring up an experience I just had yesterday. We have one of my techs here. Well, actually, 3 of my techs here. And a patient I was seeing in the clinic after I did laser surgery a week ago and a cataract surgery a few years ago tells me at the end of the visit that he wants to say something. I am with my scribe technician, who is present here in the room, and the patient. This gentleman is a PhD. He's a very well-educated person, a seasoned researcher, and even comes to the clinic with a paper that he's reviewing for a medical journal. Then he tells me that it is very difficult for him to talk because this is a very emotional subject for him. He remains silent for a few seconds, tried to compose himself. I put my hand on his shoulder and encourage him to speak. Then he starts bursting into tears and still cannot speak. I encourage him again to talk, and then he starts saying that he wants to tell me how amazing is what the whole team does every day in our clinic, and continues to cry in front of my scribe technician and me. And you're crying now. Then he ends up saying, Dr. Behrens, you do not realize what you do. Giving the gift of sight is the most incredible power a person could have, and I thank you and your team for that. When the patient stepped out of the room and patients were in the waiting area, and they see the patient crying, it was kind of like, no, this is a new test for dry eye that we're testing, and it's working. So I'm not saying that you might not have experiences like this in other medical specialties. I am sure that happens a lot in many other specialties, but definitely I think it's not as often as we see them in ophthalmology. And that is what motivates us to continue doing research, educating new generations, and improving surgical techniques to obtain the best outcomes possible. Last but never least, I would like to thank my family for all the support throughout the years. My children, Ashley, who's just arrived from Paris, France yesterday. He finished his master's there. Nicole, who just arrived from very distant area of DC a few minutes ago. And Jessica, who came from Boston last night, trying to delay all the travel because of all the problem with the traffic controllers, but she finally made it at 11:30 last night. And she is in Boston in junior college year, and also trying to work, perhaps following his steps, I don't know, working in Mass Eye as a technician right now in his co-op as a college student. Also, I would like to thank my wife, Natalie, for tolerating and supporting my crazy decisions throughout the years. She's a teacher and works way harder than I do. Thanks for so many hours of encouragement and support of life decisions in over 27 years of marriage. My sister Vivian, who's here, my brother-in-law Gregory, and my niece Vivi, who came all from Florida just for this occasion. My nephew Joseph, coming from Texas, also yesterday. Thanks all immensely for your support. And a really special thanks, there she is, to Sharon Akers for her relentless work as a president of the Foundation St. John, as well as Betsy Rutherford and Megan Ward for the Wilmer's Development Office and all the members of the Wilmer Development Office. Thanks so much for organizing such an event, amazing event today. To Mr. St. John and Mrs. St. John, the members of distinguished family present today, thank you again for your extraordinary generosity, your vision, and your trust. To my colleagues, research collaborators, comprehensive eye care team, including front desk and technicians, thanks so much. Students and trainees, thank you for your inspiration and for the incentive to learn a lot from you all. I'm profoundly honored to carry the title of Edward St. John Professor of Ophthalmology, now official, and I pledge to do everything I can to live up the promise it represents, to advance knowledge, to mentor the next generation, and to make a positive difference in the world. Thank you so much.
Ashley, Dean DeWeese, and Mr. St. John have said it all, and why you deserve this. And Sharon has told me that the real reason to do this professorship is to make sure you never leave the Wilmer Institute, right? So hand her your passport before. So now, before we have our reception, it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Behrens and his family, and Ed and Jennifer and Sharon and the Edward St. John Foundation trustees to come up to the front of the room for us to photograph your unveiling of the St. John Professorship plaque on our professorship wall. And while they're all coming up, I'll just mention there's still space available if you act now. So Ashley, show some leadership here. Let's go. Okay. Do we want the name tags on, or should we take them off? Okay, you guys unveil away here. Okay, so please join us perhaps for a glass of wine or a little something before we head out. Thank you all for joining us.